The new school year is here. Visit queenslibrary.org to see all of our back-to-school programs and giveaways, and to read our guide with helpful tips on family communication, book lists, and more. Banned Books Week is from September 18th through September 24th, and we are celebrating the books that dare us to think deeply, opening our minds to new perspectives, cultures, surroundings, and beyond. Participate in our sweepstakes online or in person, or visit our website to view our top 100 most popular banned and challenged books in circulation during the past decade. A QPL card is your passport to over 5.3 million books, movies, and other media, over 19,000 classes and events per year, over 5,000 computer workstations, and so much more. Enjoy these wonderful benefits by applying for a library card on our website or at your local library.
Welcome to Queens Public Library's talk with Martin Edrelin, the filmmaker of Islands. The San Jose Mercury News declares, Edrelin's restrained debut feature depicts the complexity of being a caregiver, showing the sacrifices it requires and how the role can turn into a crutch to avoid dealing with the hard stuff inside us all. Screen International writes, there's a cheerful pragmatism to the characters in the piece itself, a reflection and distillation of the caring, musical, religious community in which it is set. RogerEbert.com states, a stunning feat of lived-in filmmaking, with shot compositions and confident pacing as organized as furniture in a living room. Hi, I'm Brian Alessandro. For those of you who don't know me, I have written for Interview Magazine, Newsday, Pank, Huffington Post, and have recently adapted Edmund White's A Boy's Own Story into a graphic novel for Top Shelf Productions, which will be released this December. Additionally, I co-edited Fever Spores, the queer reclamation of William S. Burroughs, an anthology of essays and interviews about Burroughs for Rebel Satori Press. I'm also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the literary journal, The New Engagement. My first novel, The Unmentionable Mon, was published in 2015 by Cairn Press. My first feature film, Afghan Hound, was produced by Marianne Media in 2011. It is now streaming on Plex, Tubi, and Amazon. My new novel, Performer Non Grata, will be released in April 2023 by Rebel Satori Press. Culture Connection, curated by Daniel Zaleski and now in its 9th year at the Queens Public Library, is proud to present international artists from emerging talent to award-winning masters. These disciplines include music, theater, author talks, and film. Now expanding into a virtual format, Culture Connection is currently reaching a global audience. Martin Edrelin is a Canadian film director. His first short film, Whole, won the Canadian Screen Award for Best Live Action Short Drama at the 3rd Canadian Screen Awards in 2015, the Grand Prix at the 2015 Clermont-Ferrand International Short Film Festival in 2015, and a Jury Award at the 2014 Locarno Festival. His second short film, Emma, was named to the Toronto International Film Festival's year-end Canada's Top 10 list in 2016 and won first prize at the 2017 Rhode Island International Film Festival. His debut feature, Islands, premiered at the 2021 South by Southwest and was awarded special jury recognition for breakthrough performance. Islands was nominated at the 10th Canadian Screen Awards in the categories of Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, and the John Dunning Best First Feature Award. Martin, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian.
It's our pleasure. So for those who haven't yet seen the film, and the Queens Public Library will make it available to everyone until Sunday for free. For those who haven't seen it yet, would you be able to give us just a brief synopsis?
Sure. Islands is about a middle-aged man who's he's shy. He's lived with his parents his entire life. And his mother suddenly passes away, and he has to learn how to take on the responsibility of looking after his elderly father, on top of having to take care of himself. Mm-hmm. And he gets the help of a cousin who he starts to experience romantic feelings for, and this is sort of his first experience of falling in love.
It's really a beautiful film, Martin, and the thing that I love, I mean, there's so many things I love about it, but one of the things that I wanted to discuss off the bat was this idea of looking at something that can be potentially, a provocation, which is potentially incest. Yet you never play it with titillation in mind. It's always done very empathetically, with a great deal of restraint and intelligence and humanity. And it's not, even though it could be a shocking subject, it could be shocking subject matter, it's never played that way. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you handled it so delicately.
Well, I think I was interested, in the scenario that this character's in. I was interested in him falling in love with somebody that he shouldn't, because it just felt like it would be so easy that, someone that's never been, a heterosexual man that's never been close to a woman is obviously going to fall in love with the first person that pays attention to him. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted it to be a little bit more complex. And I think this happens in life, where we experience feelings for people that we shouldn't.
Sure.
Whether it be a colleague or somebody else's partner, we don't always act on it, or sometimes it's like, a struggle, but I don't think it's abnormal to get close to someone and have, how far the feelings go varies, but
sure.
I think it's a very normal thing.
I think so too. I think there's something very sort of psychologically knowledgeable about the way you broached it. What inspired you to write Islands? And please tell us about the title.
I'll talk about the title first. It references the Philippine Islands, where these people have migrated from, but also it's a film that explores loneliness, and so I sort of see each character as their own island, and even though they're a family that lives together, I feel like they have, as we all have, very private selves, things that we don't share. But I think these characters, especially the protagonist and even the second lead, Marisol, the caregiver who's been away from home for a long time, working as a caregiver in the Middle East, I see all of them as islands, and ultimately all of us, human beings, as sort of islands.
It's nice, very poetic and poignant.
Yeah, thank you. And then what inspired me was this first came about at a time where my mother had retired. She had been retired for a few years, but my father was retiring. And I guess it just sort of made me think about, later life, or, you start to plan for end of life even. It made me feel like I was getting older, and just like concern for their care. And, in Filipino culture, you look after your parents. We don't have the tradition of putting your parents in an old age home. And so I think that's something, especially for Filipinos and people in other cultures that have these traditions, when you live in Canada or the US, it's something that you struggle with. There's almost this like guilt, or, you don't know how you're going to take on the responsibility, because our lives here are so different than they are in the Philippines or Latin America or wherever you're from.
Yeah. So many people can identify with that and relate to it. I know I certainly can. The film is really compassionate in its focus on elder care to that point, and also tradition, and also generational divide within families. What would you say that, I know this is always a difficult thing for a filmmaker, a writer, an artist to say, but what would you say your theme or central concern was in telling the story?
This one, I guess it was partly loneliness, which is something that keeps showing up in my work. And just care for other people, which is also another thing that keeps coming up in my work. And it's not, these aren't things that I've set out to do, or I don't think I'm really conscious of them, but as I develop a project, it just sort of comes to the surface.
That is interesting. I think oftentimes we're not cognizant of a theme until it sort of reveals itself to us as we start to tell a story, whatever the story is.
Yeah.
Your approach to filmmaking is very naturalistic and gentle. Can you tell to us a little bit how you worked with your actors?
Well, for me, I think, it all starts with casting. You find the right people, and these are non-professional actors. So I tried to cast people who are very much like the characters. And I have to say they were quite easy to work with. I did have to direct them a little bit, but they brought a lot of their own experiences to the movie. Like Joshua, the lead, is a shy person. And then Marisol, she works as not a caregiver, she's a support worker.
Wow.
And so she's familiar with care. And obviously this is also something in our culture. And then, the one that was probably most left field was the father, because he is way more, he's loud. He actually does dress up as Elvis.
Yeah, so eccentric. I love that.
But he's a very good actor, and he's the one that had the most experience. But he actually came into our audition. He is a family friend of mine. He's a friend of my aunt's, and he came into the audition walking like he does in the movie. And I hadn't seen him for several years, and I thought, oh my God,
what a character!
Steve is ill. We can't have him on set like this. But it was a performance, and he was fantastic.
I like that. It reminds me a bit of Pasolini. Yes, he worked with professional actors, but he also worked with a lot of non-actors to get a kind of authenticity that trained actors sometimes can't always access.
Yeah.
So your film very much does have that sort of genuineness to the performances. What aspect of assimilation would you say Islands explores?
It's not something I was really thinking about when I wrote it, but I think for me, part of Joshua's loneliness is his, I guess, isolation from the community around him. I think that on top of being shy, he doesn't really know how to communicate with the people in his Filipino community or outside. And that's, I guess, the scene where you see it the most is when he's at work, and he's polite, but he doesn't want to hang out with his coworkers.
I think that's a very unique thing that you're doing here with looking at, a community of people who are living away from their homeland, and yet still a character within that community, still feeling kind of estranged and isolated. I think it feels very fresh. So how has the Filipino community greeted the film?
It's been amazing. What surprised me the most is we, myself and the other producer, Priscilla Galvez, we thought that this was going to be a movie for, say, the generations above us, our parents or grandparents who came here and maybe want to see a film in their mother tongue. But it's actually been the people of our generation. Like, I'd say it's, from 20 to 40, it's young adults, many who were born here. Sometimes they've, second or third generation, but I think there's a real craving for not just Filipino stories, but Filipino stories in Canada or in the United States. I definitely feel it where, as your parents get older, it's almost like our connection to who we are deep down inside, or a part of us. And one way for us to experience that or still feel a part of it is through art, film in particular.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to that. representation in all forms, not just necessarily cultural, but also generational, or seeing the story of a person between 20 and 40 dealing with an elder, and just to know that that anxiety or concern or grief or gut punch is being explored in a book or in a movie or in a TV show. Yeah. It's not that it necessarily serves as a roadmap, but I think it does provide some solace in knowing that other people are concerned too about what comes next. Marisol at one point tells Joshua, the protagonist, her cousin, that she's a caregiver. The line is, I'm a caregiver. What else? Right? Like, of course, I'm a caregiver. Many Filipino people, as you said earlier, enter the healthcare industry. Is there a relationship, do you think, between healthcare professionals and taking care of elder relatives? And is that what Marisol's line indicated?
Yes. Yes, I think so. And I think part of the reason why Filipino women have gravitated, and men too, have gravitated toward the field is it's in our culture to look after other people, especially the elderly or even children. It's funny, I watched at TIFF recently a film called Plan 75, a Japanese movie, where there's a caregiver in the movie, and she also talks about the reason why she wanted this character is because it's this taking care of elderly people is still something that's very much in Filipino culture, whereas she says in Japanese culture it's going away.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah. And so, I can't say for sure, but I do feel like it's because it's a cultural practice that, it was almost a natural, it's almost a natural career.
Interesting. There's a scene in the film, for those who haven't seen it yet. It's a microwave counting down from 40 seconds. I thought that was a really bold choice. What was your intention with that?
Okay, so we filmed it. We spent a day, or anytime there was dead time, like, we didn't have cast or we're waiting on something, we would just film things in the house. And I think that was on a weekend. We did spend like one Saturday, me and the director of photography, just filming stuff around the house. And we thought a microwave shot might be useful. And I just turned it on and we filmed the whole thing because, why not? It's just a minute.
That was great.
And then, but the editor put it in the first cut and
left it to just go the whole time.
Yeah, I questioned it, but we said, okay, let's leave it. It's not hard to take out, and we left it. And eventually, I thought, let's put the music on top of it. And once we did that, we're like, okay, well, if people hate it, they can at least enjoy the music.
I thought it was great. All right, let's take a minute to look at the trailer for Islands.
Sure.
Lord, parang awa niyo na po. Ayoko pong mag-isa. Promise po, magpapakabuti po ako.
And there was the last few seconds of that wonderful microwave scene.
Yeah,
it's a very touching film. Joshua is the type of person we see every day in life on the periphery. One critic wrote. It's not my observation. I can't remember which critic wrote that. But what does his character mean to you? You mentioned isolation and loneliness. Can you speak more about, because this is really ultimately as much as anything, a character study.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you said it in that quote. I mean, he's someone that I think we all know a Joshua, whether it's in our family or among friends or just, someone at work or we see out every day. And I guess I wanted to humanize that person a little bit. Um, and I was also interested in, so many movies like this treat the single middle-aged man or woman as a loser.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's always fair.
Yeah, it's not.
Or maybe it's never fair.
Yeah.
And there are deeper stories behind, what we see.
That's great. It reminds me of a Mary Gateskill quote. She's a writer I'm very fond of. She once said, I begin every book as though you're entering a party and you make these snap judgments of like 30 people that you don't really know. And throughout the course of the evening, you befriend these people that you reduce to like, cliches or stereotypes during the first few minutes of the party. Yeah. And you get sucked into their depth and realize, this is a person. Of course, there's a whole person here. The film ends with Joshua dancing and smiling in the same community center his parents once danced. I think it's hopeful at the end, right? Is that fair assessment?
Yeah.
What made you decide to move the location of the story from the Philippines to Canada? I think I read somewhere that you had originally. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. There were a few things. Number one, funding. At some point, there was a fund that I wasn't eligible for in Canada, and they changed the rules, and it basically doubled the budget. And part of the terms of the money or the eligibility was the film had to be, or at least I assumed the film had to be in Canada, and so I rewrote it for Canada, but also. When I was planning the film in the Philippines, I made several trips. I would take meetings with producers and just get to know the film community out there. And I got a little bit scared, just the way production works there. And I think this is I've heard this about many other countries in Asia where they'll film for 24, 30 hours sometimes.
Straight?
Straight, yeah.
Wow.
It's something they're trying to change, but it's basically because people don't get paid overtime. Wow. And so it's much easier to just use all of their time than extend your shoot. And
wow.
And I was just a little bit. Exactly. And it's probably not every production, but it's not uncommon. And so I worried about going there, assuming we're going to work a certain way and not getting to work the way that I want. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. My gosh. That's a great insight. I mean, I had no idea that is the situation. Is that sort of the norm for like the sort of larger studio films as well? The larger budgeted production films?
It sounds to me like it's small and large. It's just the way things work. Also, the crews are much bigger, even for like the smallest indie film, because they don't have insurance on their equipment. So you rent a camera and it will come with operators, or you rent a light and a stand and it comes with the crew to, they want to make sure that it's handled properly and that it goes back.
It's sort of convenient on some level to sort of have a crew with the equipment in one package.
It is, but then it's like you're paying for one or two bodies that come with every piece of equipment, and then you're also feeding them, and
it's costly. Yeah,
we had about 20 people on Islands, and I've heard like indie films in the Philippines would have about 80, and that's a small crew.
Wow, my gosh. Wow. So Islands is your first feature, as we said at the top of the program, but you've also made several shorts, including Hole and Emma. I want to talk to you a bit about Hole, but before we do that, let's take a look at a 2-minute clip from that short film.
Sure.
Billy.
Hi, Claire.
You're drunk.
Is it time for my bath?
Not tonight. You're going to bed.
No, I need my bath.
Come on. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I like you.
I like you too.
I think a lot about you.
Okay, Billy. Let go, please.
Hey, please. Stay.
Billy, please.
I'm sorry. Yeah, come on in.
Hi, Billy. I'm Grace. I'll be helping you today.
Where is Craig?
Oh, I don't know. I just go where the agency sends me.
So, please talk to us a bit about Hole.
Yeah, well, so in that clip, I don't know if it's clear that Billy, the protagonist, has a severe physical disability. He's in a wheelchair, and in that scene, he gets like a nightly bath, and yeah, he's drunk, and I think it comes across that I was kind of laughing to myself when I saw this, because I don't know if I realized how similar it is to Islands in that he's experiencing feelings for his caregiver. But this is someone who, they're not related. He comes from an agency, and after this awkward situation, his caregiver doesn't show up, and then he's replaced by this woman. And so the film, in some ways, looking back, I kind of do see it as the short film of Islands, in the way that it also deals with someone in middle age who is looking for intimacy. In Whole, it's physical or romantic intimacy. And rather than shyness, it's a physical disability.
Yeah, I was thinking about sort of this recurring theme, as you mentioned earlier, of caregiving, of compassion, of helping. And, it's evident in Whole, and obviously it's also evident in Islands. I work as well in a field where, the intellectual and developmental disability support coordination field. And I'm wondering, like, has that community been able to screen Whole, or have you had any feedback from any organization that might have been able to show it?
It's played a lot of disability festivals. I've heard only good things.
Yeah.
The actors he's from the LGBTQ community, but he's also someone that has a disability. It's been all positive, and to be honest, I was scared to make it because it deals with such sensitive subject matter. But
sure.
Fortunately, I mean, everyone has liked the film, and I think saw that my intentions were good.
Yeah, of course. And again, another just very compassionate, story, humanizing. And I think that's also very important, that we shed light on communities that haven't, yet received it, or haven't received it yet in a way that doesn't feel exploitative. And certainly a lot of people, a lot of media historically, I think that looks at or tells stories about people with disabilities does so in exploitative ways. So it's important and exciting to see a sea change. What was talking about filmmaking, what was the leap like for you to go from short filmmaking to feature length filmmaking?
It was hard. It was very hard. Mostly the writing. Uh, it was just, you know, short films. It was like going from swimming in a pool to open lake swimming, and um, just, you know, not being able to see, you know, you change something at one part of the script and then there's this domino effect, and then, you know, I don't know where did this happen, and it was, yeah, it was hard.
Mm.
But production was easier than I thought. I think that I really love being on set. There's also something about, you know, when you're there, there's, you know, money's being spent, people are counting on you, you just kind of forget about everything. It's not like, you're a writer, when you're sitting at a table, you have all the time in the world to doubt yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And doubt ourselves, we do.
Yeah.
So Islands, as we said earlier, also was very well received at several festivals, including South by Southwest in 2021. Can you talk to us a little bit about what that level of attention and praise has been like? What has it been like to receive that, and you know, what has it done for you and your career?
Yeah, it was such an interesting place to premiere this film. It's not where we thought it would land. We thought, mostly because of the language, because it's probably 80% in Tagalog, in Filipino language.
Mm-hmm.
We thought it might be more for the European festival circuit or Asian festival circuit. But South by Southwest being, you know, probably the second biggest US festival and one of the biggest in North America.
Yeah.
Really, I think, gave it a life among the diaspora in Canada and the US in particular. And the Philippines, I believe, has the largest number of Filipinos outside of the Philippines, California especially.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, it really helped to give us an audience we did not expect, and open doors that I didn't expect. You know, like the US festivals, I find they're so different from Canada, because they're, particularly at South by Southwest and Sundance, you know, there's a lot of headhunting. And so, you know, I got the opportunity to take a lot of meetings, to, you know, be offered projects or to pitch. And it ended up being, you know, very good. And then, of course, the award at South by Southwest really helped get us attention.
Sure. These awards are very important. And, you know, I think about Sundance, for example, and when it started in the 80s into the early 90s, it really was about pioneering DIY filmmakers on budgets. And there are elements of it that are still that, but I think it's also become so, probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but so Hollywoodized and self-aggrandizing on some level. Some bigger festivals like Cannes and Sundance, you know, so it's nice to see a festival as huge as South by Southwest paying attention to, you know, a small film, without any Hollywood actors.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't even know that the film could be in their narrative competition category. I assumed that was only for U.S. films.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it U.S. and Canada, or is it any?
I think it's international.
International. Okay. Interesting. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hollywood, have you had a chance to get a sense of how they operate as compared to the Canadian film industry? And if so, can you talk about some of those differences?
Not really. I don't really know. Other than the funding is very different. In Canada's, it's just like Europe and I think a lot of the world, where it's public financing. And so you don't necessarily have to package or write your projects for an audience. I think there's obviously to some level you have to, but it's not like the US, where you have to put together a project that's going to make money. You know, like producers want, or funders want a return.
Yeah, oh, sure. I mean, the budgets on some of these movies in the United States are so exorbitant that,
Yeah.
unless it's a blockbuster, many people lose money. So they
Yeah.
they're not as inclined to take risks with the kind of stories they tell. Um, we'll be taking questions from Martin in a few minutes, so please start sending them in. But I also on the subject of storytelling, who were some of your role models, writers or filmmakers?
Filmmakers. I think the filmmaker who's become sort of my North Star is a Taiwanese filmmaker, Tsai Ming Liang. He's someone whose work I came to later in my filmmaking career, but who also has a film called Hole, and this is how I discovered him.
I saw Hole, not your Hole, the other,
Yeah,
the other,
I think his film is The Hole.
the Hole. Yeah, I saw for
Yeah.
the first time this past spring.
Okay.
Yeah, his movies are really wild.
Yeah.
Like great kind of surreal provocations.
Yeah.
Who are some others?
Terrence Malick is another one I really love, and Tree of Life is probably my favorite movie.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, there's so many. Michael Haneke, and Amour. I mean, that's a movie I referenced for Islands.
Yeah, I thought about Amour as I was watching it.
Yeah, I actually gave Amour to the father in the film as sort of a sample of how to age in a movie. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, Haneke is incredible. The piano teacher and Cachet are among my favorites.
Yeah.
Would you say that Islands is at all autobiographical?
Are
there elements of it, maybe?
Elements, yeah. I think it would be hard to create anything without elements of autobiography, but there are small things like, I made him a janitor because that was my father's first job when he came to the country. The Joshua's father in the movie is a lot like my grandfather on my father's side that I grew up with here in Canada. He suffered a couple of strokes and barely spoke. And so that's sort of like, that's how I knew him. Like, we always took care of him from what I remember. Okay. He was always walking slow, and there was someone in the family always had to help walk him. The scene where Joshua bathes his father is something I remember my father doing. Yeah, and I mean, Joshua's shyness comes from me. I was very, very, very shy as a child and adolescent, and still can be quite shy now.
Is it challenging to be in the most collaborative art form and also be shy at the same time?
Yes, not on set. For some reason, everything falls away when I'm on set, and I'm there, and I'm excited, and I don't know. It's like that's where I should be.
I can relate to it. Yeah, it's like you're performing, like you're in a role, and you're doing your job, and your job requires you to talk to 40 people every day and communicate the singular vision.
Yeah, exactly. But if I was working in the US and had to be pitching projects all the time, that would be really hard. The networking could be hard. Yeah. Interviews can sometimes be hard.
Has this been hard?
No, this hasn't been hard. But I've talked about this movie I've been talking about it for like a year and a half now. So
That's true. It's your own autopilot. It's easy at this point. Can you talk a little bit about what is next for you?
Well, I'm writing a couple of things that I'm sorry to say it is too early to talk about those projects, but I'm trying to write bigger things. Because I think this film, most of it takes place in a house. I want to film outside. I want to work with, a bigger cast. But I am attached to direct an adaptation of a Filipino-American book that is starring Sharon Cuneta, who is one of the Philippines' biggest actresses. She's also an executive producer on the project.
Oh, great.
So that will be a unique experience for me. It's going to be filmed in Manila and I think California.
It's a real epic adventure. Going from just sort of shooting in your hometown of Toronto to like being in the Philippines and then Northern California.
And potentially some big, I mean, Sharon is a big star, but potentially other big stars, mostly Filipino stars, but they're trying to get a few, not star names from the US, from US talent, but known names who I can't mention now.
That's okay. Is that intimidating?
A little bit. I think it's more intimidating because I don't know. You hear stories about actors, and I work differently, and I'm a pretty calm and easygoing person, and even on set, I'll put my foot down when I need to, but yeah, it's just not knowing how people work, and that could be for any crew member. You don't really know until you get on set.
Sure. Yeah. It's like when you really just want to tell a story and you're used to working with people who want to just tell a story, and then suddenly you have to contend with potentially prima donna behavior. It becomes something else, and it diverts your attention.
Yeah.
I could appreciate that. I wanted to just go back to something you said earlier about when we were speaking about how elements are always autobiographical, no matter what you're doing as a storyteller. And you referenced your dad a few times. Has your family, obviously your family has seen the film. What kind of feedback did they give you?
Well, unfortunately, my father passed away unexpectedly in 2019. Yeah, and it was pretty sad because, again, him and his parents influenced part of this. But the movie was pretty much done when he passed, but I like my parents to see the films at a festival rather than, sitting in their living room where we sit every weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, and he's actually in the film as background in a couple of scenes. Yeah. So at least he made the movie. He's in the movie. But my mom has probably seen it more than anyone else besides myself.
That's great.
Yeah, she's come to a few film festivals to watch it and has watched it online, and she's watching this right now. Hi, Mom.
That's great. Hi, Martin.
Yeah, I think my family loves the movie. I think they're proud of me, and and I'm grateful for their support through, everything I've done.
That's great. That's beautiful. Let's see. We did get a question, but it was one of the questions I think I just asked about it being autobiographical. So we had a synchronicitous moment, the viewer and I. We asked you the same question. We should say that Islands is available to stream for free on Sunday through the Queens Public Library, and that you'll be able to access it by visiting the library's website. And we could also put a link in right here. Yes, so from September 21st to 25th. And the link will be in the comments section if you want to refer to it later. And Martin, you said there were other places as well that people can watch it right now?
Yeah, it's also available for purchase and rental on iTunes, Google, YouTube Movies, and Amazon. In Canada, it's on the TIFF Bell Lightboxes digital platform and on CBC Gem. And we're working on streaming in the US. So hopefully that will come soon, maybe next year.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I know that becomes like a distribution is a bear of a project as well.
It is.
That can take years. Well, okay. I think that about does it for us. We're wrapping up a little bit early today. Was there any other thoughts that you wanted to express about the film that we haven't really had a chance to touch on today, that maybe you haven't had the opportunity to say during other interviews?
Not that I can think of, but since we have a little time, I just want to thank, this came about because we did a screening at the Quad in Manhattan back in April, and there were a couple of Filipinos there who came up to me, loved the film, and they said, you guys need to bring it back here. And so together with, this committee of New Yorkers and Filipinos in New Jersey, they convinced us that we should do it again, and they almost sold out the theater. And they were posting flyers, they were on social media, and all of this, for free. They just loved the movie and wanted to support it. So
much not enough can be said about Community.
Yeah,
and they really do, I think, come together and rise to the occasion when they're moved by something.
Yeah.
And then that's, of course, where you met our program director, Dan.
Exactly. Yeah, that's where I met Dan. But yeah, to these guys and gal that helped us, Renee, Rolando, Julman, Kate, Rolando, Claro. I don't know if you guys are watching, but thank you.
Well, if they're not watching now, they could always watch it later, because this will be archived forever. Forever and ever and ever. All right, well, Martin, thank you so much. It's been a joy, and good luck with the film, and good luck with your future projects. To learn more about Islands, you can again find in the chat islandsthemovie.com, which will bring you to the film's official website. And the distributor again is
It's us. We self-distributed the movie.
Wow, fantastic. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Martin, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.